All right, gang, welcome. Thanks for coming out tonight. The roads are kind of nasty out there, but really appreciate everyone showing up tonight we've got a great presentation tonight. We're going to talk about some heart health issues and then also swing it over to Courtney, our registered dietitian in the back there, and then she's going to help us prepare a tasty little treat. So first you got to get through me though. So you put up with me for a little while. So just to break the ice, why don't we have, usually we have some way to break the ice. How about we start and just go around the room, everybody introduce themselves, and no, we're not going to do that. No, we're not going to do that. So, all right, I'm Dave Chalupa. I'm actually I'm a physician's assistant. I work with Lakeland Heart and Vascular, actually, and we are actually a large group now since everybody's come together with Spectrum, and we're actually located in Niles and Coloma and St. Joe at the hospital and our outpatient center there. And a growing and a large group. We have 60 clinicians, all the way from specialized nurses all the way up to cardiologists and specialized cardiac specialists. So. And what do we treat? We treat many different disease processes that focus on the heart, but the primary ones and the big ones that stick out are heart failure, atrial fibrillation, which is an arrhythmia, hypertension, also known as high blood pressure, and then coronary artery disease, all right? And I'm sure everyone has experienced one of these conditions to some degree or knows someone close to them that has. So as we work our way through here, it's quite prevalent, and you're going to see that. So let's move on here. Anyone know what February is? Yeah, it's American Heart Month. So wore red for American Heart Month, and the whole idea behind that is to bring awareness to our overall our heart health, all right, and to bring it back in center to understand that it's fairly important, and then we need to take care of ourselves. So we focus on the whole month, and it's important because if we look at this, there are more than 800,000 people that die from cardiovascular disease, all right? We talk about cancer, we talk about many other disease processes, but many people die from our hearts, all right? From heart failure to coronary disease, you hear about heart attacks and sudden death. It's quite prevalent. So looking at the percentage rates here, 11.7% of adults are diagnosed with heart disease. That's quite a staggering amount when you think about the population of the United States and how many adults we have. 11%, you're talking about millions of people, right? Millions of people with heart disease. So, and as we work our way through, we could talk about this actually for hours, all right? Heart health, diet, food, all of that. But we're just going to keep it very streamlined and discuss how does this impact our heart. And one thing we really want to focus on and point out that kind of go together is diet, our weight, and our heart are all tied together. And obesity is a big part of that. And we see that it says 2 out of 5, and I think it's even a little bit greater than that. All right. I saw a recent statistic that the BMI is actually pushing close to people, or the population with an elevated BMI is almost near 50%. That's staggering. That's pretty high number there to see a BMI that's reaching that high. And a BMI is just an index that measures our body mass, all right, compared to our height. So what about locally? What about Michigan? And this is a complicated chart, but what I want to boil down to is if this was all the way up to 100, all right, that would show perfect health. Everyone's in perfect health. Well, we take a little bit out of this, and we can see that our deficit is almost 10%. And you break that down, what makes us ill? What affects our overall health condition? And we see a lot of different things here. Look at, we start at the bottom. We've got a lot of people that smoke. All right, we've got lung disease. We hear about alcohol, and depression is also another medical condition that a lot of people deal with. But look at all these other ones. We have diabetes, high cholesterol, hypertension, coronary disease. All those are tied to the heart. All right. So we can see that it plays a huge role in the overall people's everyday liveliness. So as we move into our heart condition, or our heart status, we know that there's certain things that we can do to modify some of these right here. Okay, high blood pressure, coronary disease, and there's certain things that we can't. We have no effect on. All right. So the ones we have no role in, that we can really have little impact on, are we refer to as our non-modifiable risk factors. So these are the ones that you are dealt with and you just manage, but there's not a whole lot that will change the outcome of that. And that's your age. As we get older, we're more likely to develop heart disease. Looking at gender, males often as we get older will have a higher prevalence of heart disease too. And then genetics. You have your mother and father for the genetics that they passed on down to you. You have them to thank for that. So, but look at these. All right, these play a large role, but look at these over here in this column. These are all modifiable. So we often just choose if we're going to smoke or not. Okay, diabetes. There's different type of diabetes, but the one that we see prevalent now that's affecting as we get older is the type 2 diabetes, and that's often modifiable by diet, our weight, and overall lifestyle. Hypertension. Hypertension is modifiable. If we do things to try and treat that, we can have a large impact on that. Dyslipidemia. That's a fancy term for the cholesterol. All right, our cholesterol levels get out of order. Now that's also impacted by our genetics, but we can do other things to help sway that in the other direction. And then we'll talk about obesity. Okay, obesity. As we just discussed, is a huge problem in the United States nowadays. Anybody take a stab at one thing that we can do that's going to affect this whole column here? Any ideas? What's your name? Jenny, yes. Better diet. Good answer. By how we choose to eat and what we eat, we can affect all of these, except for tobacco use. But we can affect our diabetes, our blood pressure, our cholesterol, and our weight. So that's why that column is very important. It's modifiable, and we can attack that with our diet. So I just want to hit next. I want to talk about this large study. Anyone ever heard of the Framingham heart study? Okay, yes. So this is a large study it originated back in the 40s, and it was kind of a pioneer study. And what they did is they took an area in out east in Framingham, and they started studying this population to figure out what affects their overall health, and specifically more cardiovascular. And so it started out with this group of men and women in between ages of 30 to 62, and they followed them. And what was amazing about this study is we've gleaned so much information from this over the years that we use this now in cardiology and cardiac medicine nowadays. And we reference this study because it provides us a lot of useful information. In doing so, it identified common factors. So we identified hypertension. People with hypertension didn't live as long, all right? They identified the effects of cholesterol on the overall cardiac disease state. They identified the thickness of your heart, ventricular hypertrophy, that effect, how it negatively impacted people's health and their longevity. And so this study, which started out back in 1948, is still ongoing nowadays. All right, they're still using it, they're still gathering more information, and it's broken down to further smaller and smaller cohorts, and now they've got second and third generation from the original people that were in there, okay? So it's a very, very important landmark study that we still use nowadays, but it once again goes back to identifying these important topics here as disease processes. All right, so we talked about diet. Diet is what we can really do to affect and improve and have an impact on our overall health. So, anybody have an idea or have seen this? What is this? Food pyramid. Yeah, food pyramid. All right, so a food pyramid, that's been around for a while, and they developed this to try and give us an idea of how our normal, healthy diet should appear, okay? Unfortunately, though, the American diet doesn't look like this, all right? The American diet's almost upside down, all right? So, and even this, we could modify how we'd want to eat this nowadays, but it builds, and actually you want to think of this more of like a three-dimensional. Rather than just a straight pyramid, we want our foundation to be healthy, healthy foods, and as we work our way up to the less healthy options, all right? The key when we talk about diet, when we're talking about our health and diabetes and hypertension, is we really want to focus on keeping everything in moderation, all right? That's the key, is moderation. There's always some foods that you should eat a lot less of, and other foods we should eat more of, but everything in moderation, because that allows you to stick to the diet long term. So when we look at this, we want to make sure that we have a diet that's loaded with healthy grains, whole grains, fiber, all right? And that's going to be a focus tonight when we talk about the dish that we're going to prepare. Lots of complex carbs and healthy grains. Up from here, which I think is very important, is almost probably, it should be a large component next to this, is the vegetables, all right? Leafy vegetables with lots of fiber, lots of color. They provide a lot of health benefits with their nutrients, vitamins, but also just the fiber, all right? They help improve our overall digestive tract and overall health. Fruits, very important. Okay, we want to make sure we eat plenty of servings of those each day. The key with that is some people still have to be careful, especially diabetics, with how many carbs they're eating in fruits. But this is still a healthy option that we must include in a daily diet. Up from there, we look at the proteins. Okay, so we talk about some of the proteins, and all proteins are not necessarily created equal. All right, we have some healthier options and some less healthier options. And I always tell patients, make sure, there's not single foods in this upper pyramid that you can't eat, okay? The key is, though, keep it in moderation, all right? There's some patients that probably shouldn't be having steak every day or red meat every day, all right? Not to say you can never have it, but we need to limit and change how we eat that and how often we eat that. Eat more lean chicken breast, turkey, healthy fish, salmon, cod, and try to optimize those protein choices. And then the very tip here are the foods we should probably eat the least amount of, and that's just the sweets and refined carbs and sugars, all right? And that's kind of hard in our society nowadays to avoid those, but that's something that we really should try to limit if possible. So I think, any questions over the pyramid? I'm sure everyone has seen that to some degree before. All right, so what I want to talk about next are two other things associated with our diet. So with the food choices that we eat, that plays a large role in managing our diabetes, managing our weight, okay, eating optimal calorie amounts. But anyone have an idea of a component of our diet that we eat every day that has a large role in our cardiac health? Every day, and a lot of us don't even think about it. Any guesses? No? It's sodium, okay? Sodium, which is salt, okay? We eat it every day, and the key is we don't realize how much we eat, especially in this in the diet in the United States, because we consume a lot of sodium in a day in, day out basis. So I encourage everyone, all my patients, to make sure you look at the labels, read the labels, and see how much sodium you are consuming. I hear every day patients will say, well, I don't ever add salt to my diet. But if they look and they see even an option that looks healthy, like a can of chicken noodle soup, there's a ton of sodium in chicken noodle soup, all right? So make sure you read those, because just salt alone, that can affect our blood pressure, okay? Which blood pressure then drives up the risk for heart disease, strokes. So just take a look at just the sodium and the salt intake that you're taking in on a day in, day out basis, okay? The other thing I want to focus on, which is near and dear to my heart, is one other thing that we can do to help combat all these things we talked about here at the beginning. Right here. Exercise. Excellent. Good. So we need to focus on getting regular exercise. All right. That will help combat all of these: diabetes, hypertension, obesity. All those things we can affect positively by staying active and exercise. And I think for some people, and especially with patients with certain conditions that are arthritis and other conditions with their body, they say, well, I can't exercise. Well, it's the way you look at the exercise. Exercise isn't necessarily going to the gym and hopping on a treadmill and pounding yourself for an hour. Going out for a nice little steady walk, going to a pool, doing water aerobics, hopping on a stationary bike, those are all excellent forms of exercise, right? Which is very important to go along with the diet and modifying that ability to try and control some of these risk factors here. So, let's move forward here. So, before we move on to the next stage, just want to point out here we have a our Facebook group, and we also have other resources that allow us to for some healthy recipes, educational materials, and talk about different exercise and activities. You can also visit us here at this website, lakelandheart.com. And any questions as we move on? No questions? Guess not.
Do you know what the sodium is that we're supposed to take intake every day with the ranges? So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I usually recommend for all of my patients, I recommend to shoot for around 2,000, 2,500 milligrams of sodium a day. Yeah, you try to. I mean, you try to keep it within that range. You start getting much more than that, and there's really not a huge benefit to taking in extra sodium. We all need some sodium in our diet, but you can get that just from natural foods, enough to keep that level to where it needs to be. Once you start getting more than that, then it's not really helpful at all. So,
Water help with wellness. Everyone tells you drink 8 glasses of water.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. Yeah, I mean, it's very important to stay hydrated, okay? And water is very important to consume on a daily basis, especially with some people don't hardly drink any water in a week's time, all right? Between coffee, soda, other drinks and things that we consume, we actually don't drink much water, and water is probably the most healthy option. Now, for some patients with heart failure and other issues, they have to be very cognizant. They have to watch how much water they take in, because it can have a large impact on their symptoms, okay? So we do have to be careful of that. Drinking 8 glasses, I saw a study not too long ago that was just kind of a number that was pulled out of the air, okay? Whether we need that much, I don't know. But do we need water in our diet? We certainly do. Water is one of the most important things to have in our health, to be healthy. So yes, stay hydrated, okay, but don't force yourself to drink glass after glass after glass after water. That's not necessarily the best way to go about it. Good question. Anybody else? Yes.
Of the meat groups, which one of the meat groups would it be, fish, chicken, or turkey, that you can eat the most of with the less effect?
Well, that's a good question, and I think they and maybe Courtney would want to weigh in on that, but they all have health benefits. All right, turkey and chicken, especially without the skin on it, is a healthy option. It's fairly lean. The fat content is low, and it's loaded with protein that's healthy. Now we take fish. In fish, especially when you look at like cod or salmon or some of the deep sea fish, they have a lot of healthy omega fatty acids, which are very healthy, especially from the heart point of view. Eating large amounts of the omega-3s does seem to show some benefit in heart status. So once again, it's all moderation. I wouldn't say just go eat one thing, but keep a balanced diet. And any one of those 3 choices are very, very good choices, though. Yes.
I read somewhere that if you
Yes, you can become ill. Yep. Too much water alone is not a good thing. So I tell patients, you want to stay hydrated. You want to drink on a daily basis, but shooting for 4 liters of water or a certain target isn't always what I say is the goal. I say stay hydrated. If you're thirsty, drink, especially if you're exercising or if you're in hot weather, you should drink and stay hydrated. But drinking too much water can be unhealthy, yes. Iced tea, it's not the worst choice. It depends on the iced tea you drink. There's caffeine in a lot of teas, so you want to be careful of consuming too much caffeine, but iced tea is not necessarily a terrible choice, no?
Because I switched from pop to iced tea.
That's probably a better choice than the soda. Yeah. Good. Yes?
Are the keto and or vegan diets truly healthy?
So that's a good point, and that's debatable nowadays. Do they work? They do work in patients achieving weight loss. Are they healthy? I'm not a big fan of strict certain diets. I'm still a big proponent of eating a healthy, balanced diet and avoiding some of those diets because those diets you can't always stick to long term, okay? But they do help people lose weight, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a healthy diet. Especially from a cardiac standpoint, eating just protein and fat all day is not going to do you a whole lot of good. Yes?
I was told that having a glass of red wine a day is healthy for your heart.
Good question. So, we do know that probably wine, especially red wine, alcohol in general, a glass a day may provide some benefit to heart health, yes. And there's data that we see coming out all the time that the next day it says, well, it's not healthy for this, okay? Or it may increase your risk for this. But from a heart standpoint, we know that probably a drink a day is somewhat beneficial. We know that more than that, especially in females, is not. And we encourage patients that if they're not drinking, that's not a reason to start. So, yes, back there.
Where does the salt come from?
Where does salt come from? Well, actually, it's kind of complex because what we refer to as salt normally in our diet is actually sodium chloride. So you take sodium, you stick it with chloride, and that's how it forms in the earth. And it comes from all over. And we just get it naturally in foods in our diet, but then we produce it and then we add it to everything, and we use it for preservatives and other benefits than just tasting our foods. So, good question. Any others?
Yes.
Yeah.
What about coffee?
What about coffee?
Yes, I heard that coffee, a couple of cups a day would be good for your heart.
Yeah, I mean, there are some benefits to coffee. Coffee does have some chemicals and compounds in it that may be beneficial. So I tell patients if they drink it now already, that's okay, but you want to keep it in moderation. All right, drinking a pot of coffee a day is probably not the most healthy, especially certain patients with certain cardiac issues. A lot of extra caffeine is not healthy and helpful for them. So once again, it's all moderation. We don't want to drink a lot of coffee and then take in all that caffeine. That's not going to be so helpful. So now we're counteracting the benefits of what's useful. Good question. Anybody else?
Well, I want to make a comment. I understand that actually regular pop is better than diet pop because of the formaldehyde. Is that not correct?
Well, that's once again, yeah, that's debatable. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's getting into. I would say any pop's probably not the most healthy. We try to avoid that and keep that consumption to as little as possible. And you're right. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of diet sodas and consuming those, but whether or not they cause other health issues, there hasn't been proven studies to show that it causes harm. But once again, within moderation. Within moderation. That's what we want to remember to keep coming back to with our diet, with everything we eat, everything within moderation. Good. Any other questions?
For the same question, being a diabetic, what would you
I'm sorry.
Between the two, between the regular soda and the diet soda for a diabetic.
Uh-huh. A diabetic probably should have a diet soda. If they're going to drink any soda at all, it probably should be something with, a sugar replacement. But if they have to have one, that would probably be their best choice.
As Dave said, I'm Courtney. I am a registered dietitian here at Lakeland. Today I'm going to be making a quinoa burrito bowl for you guys, so you guys can all taste it. I do ask that you just try one bite. It's called my no thank you bite. At least give it a try. And I did decide to make it. It's a meatless recipe, and a lot of meatless dishes have a lot less saturated fat, which is going to be beneficial for your heart. So the first thing I'm going to do is get started with my onion. I'm going to use a red onion. This is my favorite recipe because it's super versatile. You don't have to use onion. You can use a different kind of onion, whatever you prefer. Really, all of the ingredients can be modified. So my favorite way to cut an onion, I already peeled the first layer off. I cut it in half. And I always cut the end off. Can everybody see here? I might move this stuff out of the way. Okay, so this is kind of my trick. You do thin little slices long ways along the onion, and it's all going to be still intact together. And you can do the slices with whatever width you prefer, and it'll be the diced size based off of the width of these little long length slices that I'm making. Almost done here. And red onions have lots of antioxidants, so they're super healthy, and they have lots of fiber as well. So it's still all intact. It's right here, still half of the onion. And then you just make slices the opposite way, and you've got half of a diced onion. In about maybe 30 seconds that took me probably. So it's a really quick way to dice up onion. So I'm gonna get the other half here, kind of mix it up. All right. So the other ingredients I'm going to be putting in here, we've got some bell pepper, which has lots of fiber. So as Dave was saying, fiber is super important for your heart. We kind of think of fiber, I think most people think of it as a digestive nutrient, which does help your digestive tract, but it also kind of acts as a cleaner for the blood. And it does that by binding to cholesterol in your bloodstream and helping your body to rid of cholesterol. So it can be a really beneficial nutrient to have in your diet when you're trying to manage those cholesterol levels. All right, so I've got my onion. Kind of gonna make a mess here. I am not a chef, but I do my best. All right, and I already have some ingredients prepped, so I'm gonna kind of figure this out here. Can't put it all in one, so we've got a few different. All right. Okay, so next ingredient I'm going to be cutting up is bell pepper. Anybody like bell peppers? Super good for snacking, adding into any dish. Lots of different colors. I love having a variety of colors in all of my dishes. Kind of just move this around here. Ooh, there's a piece of. So my favorite way to cut a bell pepper is kind of the same way I always like to do the top and cut the top and the bottom of most of my vegetables. So I got the top off, the bottom, and you can still use these, they're totally edible. And then the next thing I kind of do is just cut out the membrane. And it's still all intact, and then I do one slice, and you kind of I just lay it out, and it's an easy way to just make strips of bell peppers, which is kind of something I like to do when I'm doing meal prepping for snacks. You've just got the strips ready to go. You can just saute them up in strips for fajitas or any kind of recipe like that. I'm going to dice them today. Bell peppers have a lot of vitamin C, many nutrients. Okay. And I'm cutting up the orange. I've got a whole bowl here of all different color peppers ready to go. Has anyone tried quinoa before? Yes? Okay. Do you kind of use it as a side dish? What have you had it in before? Salads. Okay. So quinoa is a grain, and it's kind of like rice. But the interesting thing about quinoa is that it is a complete protein. So a lot of people, I think, get worried about having a vegetarian meal and am I getting enough protein in this meal? But the awesome thing about quinoa is that it is a complete protein and you don't have to worry about whether you're getting enough protein or not. And that's because it has all the amino acids that it needs to be a protein. But if you don't like quinoa, there's enough protein in, say, brown rice and black beans to have those together. It's a complete protein as well. So you wouldn't have to worry about, do I have enough protein in this meal? Those two items together is going to be a complete protein. Get this going. Yeah. Yeah, you can do that, absolutely. So for this meal, actually, it's a mixture of quinoa and brown rice. And I personally do prefer my quinoa to be mixed in with rice. It has a little bit of a different texture to it, but it's very similar to rice, and you can mix it half and half. Does anybody else have any questions? You guys can shout them out. Yeah?
Well, I looked at the onion, but when you put the onion in, it's really cry.
It does make you cry. I'm glad I'm not crying today. Sometimes I do cry. Today, I lucked out. Okay, so I think I'm gonna kick up the heat on here. I like to do the peppers and the onions first. They take a little bit longer to kind of saute up. And also, for most vegetables contain enough moisture to where you don't even need to use olive oil. I could have put a little olive oil in the dish, but it's really not necessary. If you prefer it, you can, but you don't need it. All right. Lastly, I'm going to do a tomato. And you can get canned tomatoes if you prefer. I do have canned beans and corn here today, but I chose to get the low sodium or no sodium added. But I wanted to do fresh tomatoes today. So I usually, again, just cut the top and the bottom off, and I'll slice it.
We just got an Instant Pot, and we've started doing our beans in the Instant Pot.
Oh, really?
We could never cook them from scratch, so they really turned out that great. They come out excellent in the Instant Pot.
That's awesome. I have that on my list still of things I want to get and try. Does anybody else have an Instant Pot?
Yeah, it's still in the box.
Do you have a question? Yeah.
Does tomato have seeds in them?
There are a little bit of seeds. They're pretty soft though, so you don't tend to taste them. And I think that when you buy canned, you really don't taste them at all either. Tomatoes also have vitamin C. A lot of these vegetables have vitamin C and also lycopene, which can be very protective against heart health as well. And fiber. Actually, every ingredient today that I'm using, except for the Greek yogurt, has fiber, which is pretty awesome. We want you guys, everybody, to try and get at 30 to 35 grams of fiber a day, which is, most people don't get that. But this recipe, in just 1 cup, you're gonna get 26 grams of fiber. So it's a really high fiber recipe. Let's see. And fiber is only found in plants, and this whole recipe is plants, so. All right. What do I have next? Okay, so next I am going to slice up the avocado. Has anybody tried avocado before? Anybody hasn't? You have? What do you guys use it for? Chips, like guacamole? Yeah. Eggs? Oh yeah. Oh, nice. You make it in the avocado?
Yeah, I take get out and I cut a little bit of meat out and crack the egg and put it in there and cheese out.
Oh, that sounds really good. I actually just found, I'm a big Aldi shopper, and they had frozen chunked up avocado. And I was like, what can I use this for? But I have heard that avocado is really good in smoothies and it makes a creamy texture. So I did buy it. I haven't made them yet. I just bought it, I think, like 2 days ago. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But avocados, just one avocado has 10 grams of fiber, and they're also really heart healthy because they have those omega-3 fatty acids that Dave was talking about. They're unsaturated fat, so they're good for you. And most Americans don't get enough omega-3s in our diet. Another great source is going to be your salmon, your tuna, but here's a plant-based source. So basically, this one was really easy to cut. Usually it's not that easy. Usually you kind of have to twist it, and then the core is in the middle. And if you leave this in your guacamole, it kind of helps the avocado to not brown. I don't know if anybody's tried that. So I just kind of dice it. This one was ready to go, so it was really easy.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said you bought chunks.
Yeah, it was already cut up. Yep, it was in a bag. Of course, it has some citrate on it to prevent the browning, but it was just avocados and citrate. So.
And that's it. No other scary ingredients.
No, I haven't tried them yet though. So I don't know how they'll taste. I've never had avocados. I didn't open the bag yet, but I'm assuming hopefully this. Well, I'm not putting it in here. What am I doing? I'm going to add it last. I'm not going to cook the avocado. Sorry, I'm just getting to talking and I'm not even paying attention to what I'm doing. All right. So next I'm going to add the corn and black beans, which I have it already all prepared. So as you guys can see, I found reduced sodium black beans. I couldn't find any that didn't have any salt added, but what I do for any kind of canned items that I buy is I strain them all out before I use them. So corn, beans, I've even strained out pears, peaches, things like that are in cans. Just run some water over them to kind of reduce the sugar or the sodium content. And then I did find corn that had no salt added at all. There was still 10 milligrams, but you want to be careful with salt, as Dave was saying, kind of to watch your blood pressure, which could increase your risk for heart disease. So I've kind of got that already here. And then the last ingredient I will kind of talk about once I get this cooking is the quinoa. So as I was saying, quinoa is really similar to rice. You kind of cook it on the stove just like you would rice. You boil it with water. 2 cups of water per 1 cup of quinoa. And you can eat it as a side, you can eat it as your main dish. And it also has a little bit of omega-3 fatty acids in quinoa as well, which is nice. We got a lot of food here. I hope you guys are hungry.
Is it cooked in a bag or a box? Is it in the rice section?
Yeah, it's in the rice section area, and it's normally, I see it in a bag. I don't know if anybody's seen it in a box before. I have seen it in a box, like with a mixture of rice, but it's normally in a bag. I'll show you what I have today. It's in a bag. And for the cooking demo purpose, I didn't have time to actually cook just quinoa. So I found this brand. It's called True Roots, and this was also in the rice section. I found it at Meijer. And it's quinoa with brown rice, so you guys are going to kind of get just a small introduction to quinoa. You don't have to eat just the quinoa. It has rice in there as well. And it's a good option for something that is processed. So this is ready to go. You can just microwave it if you wanted this for like maybe a lunch option, add something to it, just cut it in half. You can saute it up ready to go, but the ingredients are, quinoa, brown rice, red beans, onions. They're all whole food ingredients. When you look at the ingredient list, this is a really healthy option for something that is processed. So I already have most of it mixed in, but here I'm going to add the rest, and you guys can kind of see it just is in the bag. But normally when you would find it in the bag, it's going to be dry and it hasn't been cooked yet. So we'll mix that. I feel like these aren't getting very hot. Maybe it is. All right. Get that going. And then what I'm going to do is, kind of like I said, you can vary this recipe. I've taught this class a few different times, and I've had people who kind of trick their family members, because I'm going to have you guys try it with Greek yogurt. Has anybody used Greek yogurt instead of sour cream, as can be a replacement? What do you think? Do you like it? Yeah? No? So my mom's a sour cream lover. I tried it on her. She knew right away. But some people don't. I had someone who told me she gave it to her husband and he had no idea whatsoever that this was Greek yogurt and not sour cream. And the reason why I'm using it is because it is a lot less saturated fat, and it's also healthy for your gut microbiome. It has probiotics, just like any yogurt would have in it. It's going to be healthy for your gut. So I did put just a little bit in each bowl so you guys can try it, and a little bit of salsa as well. If I was making this at home, I would probably add jalapeno. I like a lot of spice. You could add a little bit of hot sauce. I've had someone add mushrooms and spinach to this dish. You can really, like I said, vary it. Has anyone made something similar to this before? Did you add anything different? The spinach. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna finish chopping up these avocados, and then I'm also gonna add some cilantro. We'll see if these all kind of chop up nicely like the first one. I just kind of cut around it. See, this one didn't fall apart as easy, they usually don't, and then you kind of twist it to open it up. And then the core can be tricky. I've had people tell me like to, but I'm always nervous that I'm gonna miss the avocado and hit my hand. So I'm pretty careful with that. And then this is something that you want to add last as well, just because you don't want it cooked. Get these ready.
And Courtney, where can everybody find this great recipe?
In your little goodie bags that you got. We've got the recipe printed out for you guys. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what else I didn't mention. Any questions yet so far? Ooh, this one is not as soft.
Does this taste good as leftovers?
This is great for as leftovers, actually. This is kind of one of my favorite things to make for a meal prep if you like to meal prep. Some people don't like meat reheated. They think it tastes a little different. And so this is a great option to use warm up the next day. Another awesome thing is that maybe you want to, the first time, eat it just as is, kind of like a salad here. The second day you could put it over a bed of mixed greens. You can have it as a salad, or you can put it in, say, a tortilla for tacos. You can add scrambled eggs to it. So every day you can kind of do something different. If you wanted to add meat to it, you could do ground turkey, you could do chicken. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to make the recipe so you don't get bored with it. It's heating up here. Just take it a minute. All right, and lastly I have the cilantro. So the lovely Leanne today showed me that you can just put the cilantro in a cup. Has anyone done this before? And use scissors and just chop it up like this. It was a new little trick. You learn something new every day. Usually I just kind of take the bunch and I will chop it up. And I used to worry about getting all the little leaves off of the stems, but you wouldn't even notice it. I just kind of chop this way, and it depends too how big you like your garnish to be. You can kind of still leave them in the leaf form. You can chop it up really small like these scissors did, which is pretty. Sorry, I didn't hear the beginning.
Cilantro has like a kick to it or something, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know,
I'll leave it off for some people. Some people say that it tastes like soap to them, and I think it's like it either tastes like soap or you love it. Like there's no in between. I don't know. Has anybody else heard that?
So is there something else that you can replace with cilantro, like fresh parsley?
Yeah. I mean, it would change the flavor a little bit, but if you're a fan of parsley, you could definitely use parsley. There's also this True Roots brand has, and there's all kinds of brands out there now. You don't have to get this brand. I just knew that I liked the flavor of this, so I wanted you guys to try it. But they also have like a garlic and spinach, so you can kind of do the same thing, but not make it like more. It wouldn't be Mexican flavored. You could do just add more spinach to it. You could add broccoli to it. So a lot of them are really mushrooms, just versatile that you can do. I saw also they have like the Minute brand where you can just cook it really quickly in the microwave. I think we're pretty much ready. I just want to make sure this food is hot.